Welcome to the Athletic FC podcast with me, Ayo Akinwolere. David Ornstein has spoken. Arsenal have hijacked Tottenham's move for Eberechi Eze. So how did we get here? Here with us today, we have the Athletics football correspondent, David Ornstein, and we'll get the view from both sides of North London a little shortly as well. David, I know you're on holiday, but the football never stops. Eze has gone to Arsenal. Tell us, what are the details?
The best never rest, Io. I'm certainly not the best, but I do never rest because this industry and transfer market is wild and relentless. And if you sleep, you're probably going to miss something. It's 24/7, and we haven't seen the end of it yet. So, yeah, Arsenal have reached an agreement in principle with Crystal Palace to sign Eberechi Eze for a fee in the region of his now expired release clause, which was 60 plus £8 million. I think it works out precisely at about 60 plus £7.5 million. And he's agreed personal terms with Arsenal as well. It was a move that he ultimately always wanted, but that doesn't tell you the half of the story. The plan is, I think, for him to play in Crystal Palace's Europa Conference League game tonight on the day of recording, and then undergo his medical before completing this blockbuster proposed transfer.
Is that not quite risky though? If I'm Mikel Arteta, I don't want Eze playing if I'm spending this much money.
I guess it presents potential risk, yep. However, it was always part of any negotiation with Crystal Palace. I don't think we should show any disrespect to the magnitude of their European fixture. We know what they've been through with UEFA, the Europa League into the Conference League. And Eze's a key player. It's not Palace's fault, the speed of negotiations, and they planned with him for the Community Shield, for their opening Premier League match, and now this one too. Tottenham, and we'll get on to their pursuit shortly, eventually agreed a deal with Crystal Palace and accepted all of their conditions. And one of them was to let Eze play in Thursday's match. So it was the same situation for Spurs as it is for Arsenal. And Arsenal went along with that. Of course, everybody has their fingers crossed for club and country and football as a whole that any player comes through any match unscathed. And there'll naturally be a bit of anxiety around this. But, you know, his fitness record has been great since his ruptured Achilles, and fingers crossed for the player that he will emerge intact and able to undergo his Arsenal medical and complete that really quite surprising, ultimately stunning move.
Is it too much of a stretch to ask that if this match wasn't happening tonight, Palace is first in Europe, that Eze would be a Spurs player right now?
I think there's a very good chance of it. However, I don't think the Crystal Palace match element is what ultimately delayed Tottenham's proposed transfer. I think that was more a case of the negotiations, the back and forth between Spurs and Crystal Palace over whether it be the fixed fee, the add-ons, the ins and outs of a deal of such magnitude. You know, financially, it's very high. It's hugely important. There are a lot of factors and voices involved, even though the ultimate discussions were direct between Daniel Levy, the Tottenham chairman, and his Crystal Palace counterpart, Steve Parish. And it hasn't been suggested to me that the Conference League game brought about a delay that allowed Arsenal to sneak in and get this done. I think it was more an unfortunate set of circumstances in that as the negotiations dragged on, and we can get into that in due course, Arsenal suffered the news of Kai Havertz's knee injury, and it means he could be out for a period of time. They don't know just yet. They're still assessing the extent and duration of the problem. And Arsenal detected that the negotiations between Tottenham and Palace were not necessarily going as smoothly as Tottenham would have liked. And they identified it as a chance to pounce. And pounce they did in quite remarkable speed and efficiency that has allowed them to get this deal done. But with all of these situations, it's not done until it's done. And there are many factors that would have prolonged those talks. And yeah, I don't think it's necessarily Thursday's game. And you've got to remember in all of this as well that Eze's preference was always, if possible, to join Arsenal. He was in their academy at an early age. He is said to be a fan of the club, and from what I hear in multiple conversations, he was asking people over a long period of time, are Arsenal there? Does Mikel Arteta want me? He was sort of pushing teammates and things like that to try and explore this situation. So I think there would have been a bit of residual intrigue on his part of whether this would ever come about. However, I've got to make clear that Tottenham got a deal done with Crystal Palace and with the player. It was ready to rumble, and it was very much in its final stages before Arsenal came and did this. People will have their verdicts and versions of events and opinions, but I don't know what more Tottenham could have done in this situation.
You mentioned dragging negotiations a couple of times now, David. Spurs fans are surely going to be angry at Daniel Levy. How come Spurs didn't get this over the line much quicker?
Well, unless we're in this negotiation and privy to all the facts, we're speculating as to why it dragged on. And that leads us all, myself included, to risk making uneducated guesses as to why Tottenham didn't line this and why Arsenal did. And there may be some legitimate criticisms of any side in this situation, and there may be some really unfair ones as well. And so, there will be, I'm sure, some feeling on the Tottenham part that Crystal Palace didn't make it easy, and on the Crystal Palace part that Tottenham didn't make it easy. And ultimately, Arsenal come through and are set to get a player that makes it look like a great victory for them, which it might prove to be. But it also might prove that Tottenham turn around and sign an even better player, or somebody with a better value for money over the long run, or a higher ceiling. And at the end of this season or in the future, we're all reflecting and saying, maybe Arsenal, it proves to be incredibly successful and helps them to trophies. And certainly you wish the best for Eze on that front as the player. But it could turn out that Tottenham go on to greater success. And so what I'm saying is, like, we're predicting a lot of this, and we're picking over things to be right or wrong that we just don't know in and amongst the emotion of a lot of this, whether it be celebrating Arsenal fans or commiserating Tottenham fans. And so, it's clear that there were issues in the negotiation, but that's not uncommon. It happens all the time in the transfer market when people have their priorities and are defending their own interests. And so, the recriminations, I think, are slightly misplaced unless you know exactly what has happened, and I don't in that sense. What is clear is that Tottenham went to a really far extent on this. They even were prepared to go to the release clause sort of value when it emerged that Arsenal were in. But by this point, Arsenal were prepared to match that, and the player wanted Arsenal. And that's the crucial factor in this, because in that sense, Tottenham couldn't have done much more other than, with hindsight, they could have wrapped it up quicker. But the player, ultimately, if he really wanted to join another team, Tottenham aren't going to go to an unreasonable level to convince someone that deep down doesn't want to be there. And they do have other options. And from what we hear, and I don't know exact names, but those are some pretty ambitious, and we've heard about Savinho. There will be other players too. Reports of Akliouche of Monaco, and if they pursued a deal for somebody like him, I speak to a lot of people in football who think he's going to be one of the best attacking midfielders around, and has outrageous potential. So I don't know all of the details, and so I don't want to pontificate over it. And I also think a bit of calm is needed in this as well, to understand that just because it's a sort of spectacular situation now. Looks good for Arsenal, looks bad for Tottenham. That doesn't necessarily reflect the exact reality.
Now, you've answered one of my final two questions, really. One was, where do Spurs go next? But the other one really is about Arsenal. Surely they have to sell. They've spent over £250 million in this window.
Yeah, I think Arsenal will, of course, turn their priorities to outgoings. If they hadn't already, it was clear with the expenditure in the window that Arsenal would need to shift some bodies. We've talked about it for a long time. We broke the news on Fabio Vieira, Stuttgart being in talks for him. That's ongoing. It may end up, from what I hear, if it happens, being a loan with an obligation to buy. And there's a bit of back and forth on the potential fee. Reece Nelson, we reported on Fulham. They were close. That doesn't ever mean it's done, but if you're close, it's a situation that could still unfold in that direction. Maybe there's other interests too. Who else? Maybe a Zinchenko, if the market develops around him. So on and so forth. Some people point to a Trossard. James McNicholas on The Athletic revealed that a sort of amended contract has been agreed, so you suspect that he's staying now. Gabriel Martinelli has had some interest by Munich during this window, and I think there were some links to Aston Villa. Let's see, because that's a part of the pitch, that left side where sort of Martinelli and Trossard occupy, that Arsenal, I think, were quite keen to try and upgrade in. Now, whether they deploy Eze towards that side, if and when this deal is done, we'll have to wait and see. But there is potential there for Arsenal to recoup money. It was high on the agenda. It's going to have to be even higher now. However, you don't need to do all of that business before the summer transfer window closes. You could do some of it in the January 2026 window, in the summer 2026 window up until June the 30th to balance your books, as we talk about so much now. Arsenal had a lot of headroom on Premier League PSR, so that's one thing in their favour. They did not have a lot of headroom on UEFA's FFP, financial fair play rules. They are tight on that, and so some manoeuvring will need to be done. But right now, I'm not getting any sense that they're in a panicked situation. They do need to trade out better than they've done in the past. Their sales have not been as impressive as some of their rivals by any means. People have been pointing out Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain remains their record sales some years ago. And so they're going to have to improve on that front. We've seen the chapter of Andrea Berta, the new sporting director, impressing people with his inward recruitment, and now will be a test of his qualities outbound. We're hearing really good things about him, how he operates. We're seeing the seasoned professional, very experienced and high level, that built his reputation at Atletico Madrid and has now come into Arsenal to help them. He's said to be one of the leading professionals in football in this kind of role, but it's not all about the signings. It's about the sales too. And so let's see what he and Arsenal can do. This was a deal for Eze that was really executed. This mission was orchestrated by Berta and Tim Lewis, the Arsenal vice chairman, who's playing an increasingly influential role in matters at the Emirates in recent years. And they will be tasked now with making sure that the business in the other direction is of a high level too. James King is there now, who's Director of Football Operations, I think. He's integral to what's going on and building a really good reputation for his quality of work and his personal skills too. And that will all be put to the test now, not only in the final period of this window, but in the next one to January and the start of the subsequent one in the summer of 2026.
Well, David, it's been quite the 24 hours, hasn't it? I'll let you get back to your holiday. Really appreciate your time, sir. Well, next, let's get the reaction from both sides of North London. Well, joining us now is our Tottenham writer, Jack Pitt-Brooke, as well as Adrian Clarke from the Athletic's Arsenal podcast, Handbrake Off. Right, Jack, let's start with you on this one. Morgan Gibbs-White, now Eberechi Eze. Fair to say Tottenham fans can't be happy that they've lost out on those two potential massive signings.
Yeah, it's fair to say it's pretty not a happy time at the moment in Spurs world. There's a lot of annoyed and frustrated fans out there. I think that to have got so close to two seriously good Premier League proven midfielders this summer, and to have landed neither of them, both in let's say slightly unusual circumstances, is deeply frustrating. You can maybe, as a fan, you can maybe accept it once, and then when it happens again, I know the circumstances are different between Gibbs White and Eze. Um, I think, it's left a lot of fans feeling pretty frustrated because everybody knew what a fantastic player Eze would have been. All week, people have been talking about this would have been our best signing for years, stuff like that. And I think I said on this show last week, he would have come in and been Tottenham's best player. Like, he's an amazing player who would have massively elevated the level of the team. And now he's going to go and play for Arsenal instead. So yeah, it's a pretty tough one to take for a lot of Spurs fans out there.
Yeah, how big is this in terms of the fact that, James Maddison, that was the big issue really, is that there's no cover there, and I'm sure Spurs will have other names on their list, but in terms of the level of quality that Eze potentially could bring to Spurs, is that why it stings a little bit more?
Oh yeah, it's a massive factor. Tottenham have got two very good creative midfielders, Dejan Kulusevski and James Maddison, but they're both out with long-term knee injuries. Maddison did his ACL during the Asia tour. He had surgery. I think he'll be out for a lot of this season. Kulusevski had knee surgery in May. I don't think he's going to be back anytime soon. And so they obviously need more quality in there. Like everyone, that's been very, very clear for a long time. Now, if they'd got Gibbs White, it would have been less of an issue because that's the position that he plays in. As a slightly different type profile of player, but he obviously would bring a huge amount of creative quality and match-winning skill in that area of the pitch. And now they're facing a reality where they've got Maddison and Kulusevski injured. Gibbs White has signed a new contract at Forest, and Eze's going to Arsenal. So it does leave them really, really short. And I do feel a lot for Thomas Frank, who I think has made a pretty good start, but he's going to have to be even more adaptable, even more pragmatic, find different solutions, because he doesn't really have that match-winning creative quality in the middle of the pitch.
Adrian, I almost don't want to come to you because I can feel the glee coming off the screen right now in terms of, Arsenal getting one over on their rivals. But the circumstances are really interesting, and we'll talk about that a little later on. But this is a massive coup for Arsenal, isn't it?
Yeah, look, it's an all-timer, isn't it, in the world of hijacks. It's a brilliant signing, first and foremost. The perfect signing, really, in my opinion, for what Arsenal need. But the nature of it, coming in right at the end to sort of steal him away from your big rivals up the road, it doesn't really get any sweeter than that in terms of transfer activity. So Arsenal fans are absolutely joyous at the moment. And I have to say, in terms of signings, I don't think I can remember one player uniting the fan base in such a powerful way as Eze. I don't think I know an Arsenal fan that didn't want him. So it's a really exciting moment.
Yeah, I've seen tweets and X's around Sol Campbell and all that kind of stuff. Is it even sweeter because it is Tottenham? Is it even sweeter that this was a huge target for Tottenham that Arsenal technically we thought was sort of out the races for, and then last minute they come up trumps and get him?
Yeah, look, Spurs had the last laugh last season, didn't they? Win a trophy, which was fantastic for them. But yeah, I think Arsenal fans were waiting for a moment to sort of, take revenge, and this is it. Look, it's just the pull of Arsenal. In fairness to Tottenham and the hierarchy, I don't think that they should beat themselves up that much. The player ultimately knew that Arsenal were interested, and he preferred Arsenal, and for whatever reason, I know he's got historical links to Arsenal. He's an Arsenal supporter. Arsenal are always also a stronger team, so you can't blame him for preferring that destination. It was just a case of, I did feel once that deal dragged on a little bit, my sense was that maybe Eze was waiting to see if Arsenal would swoop. And yeah, look, the timing of it, the drama of it, it's up there, isn't it, with one of the sort of most exciting acquisitions, in recent times in the Premier League. Absolutely loving it.
Yeah, and there's an interesting story about Emmanuel Petit going to Spurs and then obviously going straight to Arsenal in a cab paid for by Spurs. And, these stories have emerged again as well across the internet. So this is a really interesting one to keep our eye on. Jack, we've spoken before about Daniel Levy not giving managers the required backing. Does this threaten or undermine Thomas Frank's position? Because he's trying to build something here. But then I sort of look at it and surely it's not Thomas Frank's fault or Spurs' fault that Eze has chosen Arsenal instead.
No, I don't think it is. I don't think this is Daniel Levy's fault in this instance. I know that's maybe not what Tottenham fans will want to hear. There's obviously a lot of anger out there, but I think that it's kind of hard to see what more Tottenham could have done. They were in the end they were happy to pay the money for Eze. If it takes it takes three parties to do a deal, doesn't it? It takes the buying club, the selling club, and the player. And if they can't all if they can't all agree on the same thing, then you're not going to get a deal. So yeah, so I don't think this is a case necessarily of Levy not backing Frank. Like I think that he obviously, I think that in many ways, like Tottenham did enough under normal circumstances to sign Gibbs White. They did enough under normal circumstances to sign Eze. That all said, clearly Tottenham would be a better team with either of those two guys in the team on the pitch. Like they obviously have an issue there in that area, and I think that it's going to make Thomas Frank's job harder this season because he's got lots of sort of physical defensive midfielders. But he's not really got guys who can like play that clever final pass, that give you that bit of magic, that bit of genius. And so I think it does make his job harder, but I don't blame Levy as much as some people will do.
Adrian, in terms of the dressing room, I'm just trying to flip it the other way. Imagine if Gyökeres was taken by another team, a player that Arsenal had been chasing, and what impact that would have on a dressing room that was expecting that level of talent. Do you think it could also have the same sort of, how can I put it, effect when it comes to the Spurs dressing room? Because there have been conversations about Eze potentially coming to them all this transfer window.
No, I think footballers are quite resilient, really. I don't think it will affect them too much. Yeah, they'll be a little bit demoralised and be like, sort of, can't believe it, absolute joker. But I think Tottenham's players will know where their team, where their club is in the food chain at the moment. And at the moment, they are behind Arsenal in terms of quality, in terms of aspirations, in terms of what the team can achieve. And they're all footballers. They all have their own individual careers, their own journeys and pathways. And I don't think they would begrudge Eze a move to Arsenal if that's what he prefers. I think it's just the way it goes. Footballers don't get too excited about signings until they're actually in the building, because we all know that things can change last minute. So no, I don't think it'll impact Tottenham too much. It will frustrate them because they will know that he was a player that could have taken them maybe to the next level, put them, maybe at the moment they have aspirations for a top 6, top 8, top 6 finish. Eze coming in would have got them dreaming of top 4 for sure. So that will be the frustration, but the players will get on with it.
Why do they need him? Be honest, because I still see him as a bit of a luxury signing. And also, where do you think he fits into this system?
It's a good question because there's no obvious answer to where he fits in. I just think that this Arsenal team, this Arsenal squad needed a maverick talent, somebody different with a profile that can unlock the door, create moments of magic in a different kind of way. Mikel Arteta has some great players, some brilliant individuals, but as a team, Arsenal have been a little bit too structured, in my opinion, a little bit too formulaic in terms of the way that they attack, and that has at times made them easier to defend against than some other teams. So what Eze brings is positional unpredictability. One minute he might be on the left, the next he'll be in the number 10 role. Sometimes he'll pick the ball up deep. Sometimes he'll go in beyond the final man. I remember him scoring or making goals, making runs beyond the offside line on numerous occasions for Crystal Palace. So he just is a player that unlocks the door and will absolutely draw attention away from a Victor Gyökeres. He'll draw some attention away from Bukayo Saka, who has been sort of double marked for the last 2 or 3 seasons. And now opponents will, they'll have to spread their resources and their concentration. And that, I think, has to be good news for the team as a whole.
Yeah, just very quickly, Jack, I'm going to come to you in a second. In terms of the significance of this move to Arsenal, we obviously know Eze used to play for Arsenal in the academy as a youngster. Amy Lawrence has spoken about, how much there is a romantic twist into Arsenal summer. It's interesting because on one side, he was going to Tottenham. There was conversations there, and then last minute, there's a quick change of heart. Is it one that pulls at the heartstrings? Unfinished business?
Only he can answer that, but yeah, I would imagine so. I think he will be chuffed to bits. Look, he asked for the team that he's supported by all accounts. So that is a massive pull. He'll want to. Yeah, he dreamed as a kid of wearing the red and white. He dreamed of playing at Emirates, and that dream was taken away from him. And now he's been given a second chance. He's going to be so hungry to become a hero among the supporters, of which he's been one. So, yeah, look, he would have been happy to go to Tottenham. I've got no doubt about that. It would have been a step up. He'd have played Champions League football. He'd have played in a team that would have suited him, I'm sure. He would have been their main man. A lot of that, it ticks so many boxes. But unfortunately, for Tottenham, Arsenal was the dream destination. And as soon as he became aware that bid was serious, then I don't think there's anything that Daniel Levy, Thomas Frank, or anyone at Spurs could have done about it. It's just unfortunate from their end.
Okay, Jack, there are other permutations here, and I think about his England place. He's emerging as, an England player. Does this do damage to that? Because I'm thinking, if he goes to Tottenham, there's a lot of game time there. And who says he might not get that game time at Arsenal? But the window or the view of Eze at Tottenham playing week in, week out, surely might be better for his England prospects.
Yeah, maybe. I think he would have been a more integral player at Tottenham than he will be at Arsenal. But I still think he'll play a lot at Arsenal. Like, I think Arsenal will have tons of games this season. They'll go far in all 4 competitions. They don't really have a player quite like him, I don't think. I think he's, obviously they started Martinelli at Man United on the weekend. Like, I think a lot of Arsenal fans would have Eze in over Martinelli anyway. Like, I think that obviously Arteta he likes to have lots of different types of players to play in that front line who can offer different tactical solutions. And so, plausibly there'll be games where he'll want Eze, or maybe games where he'll want a different type of profile. But I don't think he's going to be starved of minutes at Arsenal, put it that way. But I think ultimately, like, in either, like, had he gone to Tottenham or in the case of him going to Arsenal, I think it's great for his England career either way. He's playing with a higher level of play. He's playing in the Champions League. I think tonight will be his first ever game in European competition, right? Which is kind of amazing for such a good player he's not a kid either. He's 27 now. So I think that Thomas Tuchel will probably think he's really looking forward to seeing Eze play at a higher level in higher quality competition, and seeing how he does. And I think he's got every chance of having a really big role in England's team at the World Cup next summer.
On Monday, Adrian, we spoke about Victor Gyökeres and also how he being a win now signing. Surely Eze at the age of 27, he sort of slips into that bracket as well.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, but look, 27 isn't old. But he's probably at the peak of his career at the moment, and Arsenal have got him at just the right time. He's just effortless in the way that he's sort of going past players, isn't he? I mean, for dribbles, I think he ranked 4th last season. The one area that he will really add to is shots. He gets himself into goal scoring positions, shooting positions a lot. And Arsenal probably, we saw it at Old Trafford. Arsenal didn't have many efforts on goal, did they? I think he will up their shot count. I think no one had more efforts from outside the box, for example, than Eze last season. So he's going to give, a new sort of armoury to Arsenal in that department. So yeah, look, just really, really excited to see how he fits in. And Jack's right. If you'd have canvassed opinion, if he'd have been available for the Manchester United game, I'd say 90 to 95% of Arsenal fans would have preferred Eze to start in that left side position. You don't have to stay on the wing in this Arsenal team. I think Mikel Arteta wants to bring more chaos, more fluidity to the team, and some of those counter-attacking moments where Arsenal fluff their lines at Old Trafford, I'm pretty confident that Eze would have produced better quality in those moments. I just think this is a dream signing, not just for the fans, but maybe also for Victor Gyökeres. I really do, because Gyökeres wants early passes played in beyond the last man. And Eze's been doing that for Mateta for the last 18 months, 2 years, quite brilliantly. So, yeah, I can't wait to see what he brings.
Yeah, for sure. Quickly, Jack, we've spoken about it. He's going to be playing in European football potentially tonight against Fredrikstad. Is this a bit of a risky one when someone's just has been committed to another team? Surely the last thing Arsenal fans want right now is for Eze to come out of this match injured, and then there he goes. That signing becomes a bit dud.
Yeah, you're right. It is quite unusual. I think in these circumstances, it's more normal for a player who's about to make a move to not play and to be held back so that they can do their medical the next day. I think that, I mean, I don't know exactly why he's playing, although I wouldn't be too surprised if he feels like he wants to. Palace has been hugely important to him over the last 5 years. It's obviously a very significant moment for Crystal Palace. Even putting aside all the mess this summer with having to change competitions and UEFA and CAS and so on, it's still a big night for them, and maybe he wants to be part of it. And what I do know for certain is that when he left Queen's Park Rangers in 2020, it was very important to him to leave on good terms. And if you speak to anybody at QPR now, they could not speak any higher of Eze, not just as a player but as a person. He's absolutely loved by everybody at QPR, and still is. And he still knows everybody. When I think Palace played QPR recently, I was thinking the FA Cup last season, and he made sure he said hi to everybody and remembered everybody's names and faces and all that stuff. So I think he's definitely somebody who wants to leave clubs in a good way, in a kind of dignified and respectful way. And I just wonder whether that's part of the thinking behind him playing in Europe tonight, although I can't say I know that for absolutely certain.
Okay, all right. I know you guys are super, super busy today. I know, Jack, you'll be recording View from the Lane, our Spurs podcast a little later on. And Adrian, also, give us a little chat about what's going on YouTube. You've got a show on YouTube.
Yeah, started my own YouTube channel, this summer. So, which is quite exciting. I thought, let's have a go, and I've been blown away by the amount of people that have been watching the videos. So, chuffed to bits, and just producing sort of my own analysis, previews, reviews of games. And I did do a video on Eze a few weeks ago saying yes please. So that old video,
well, you got your wish.
That old video. I noticed there's been a few people revisiting that over the last 12 hours or so, which is quite fun.
Yeah, really nice. Very quickly, North London derby, Jack. It's going to be an interesting reception for Eze when Arsenal face Spurs.
Oh yeah. I think I think that Spurs fans will probably make their opinions known. But equally, like I said, I'm sure that I think at the moment lots of fans are probably more frustrated about the fact the deal hasn't happened, maybe rather than with Eze himself. But yeah, I mean, it's not a difficult one to point to in the diary as being a game that needs no extra edge anyway.
Okay, fantastic, gents. Appreciate your time, Adrian, Jack, and also David Ornstein, who joined us earlier. And also thank you guys for watching. Please like the video and also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and leave us a cheeky comment as well. That is it from us. We're back soon. For more from the Athletic FC podcast, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. We've got top journalists like David Ornstein, Matt Slater, Adam Crafton, Carl Anker, and plenty more through the entire season. Make sure you don't miss an episode of the Athletic FC. You can get it wherever you get your podcasts from.